hello, we are live.
I can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Maddie. You're cutting out. We're off to a great start. Dogs barking, Mary's cutting out. Welcome.
I don't know why my internet says everything is fine.
I mean, you're fine now.
I was just saying welcome to what is surely to be an entertaining show as we are off to a great start. We read People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I don't know if I even said my name. My name is Marines. My channel is My Name is Marines. Mostly I'm a book talker these days.
She a Gen Z now.
I would give this 4 out of 5 stars.
Cool. I'm Sam from Thoughts on Tomes. I would also give this 4 out of 5 stars. I wasn't sure if it was like 3.75. We'll see how I feel as we talk.
Mm-hmm. I'm Kayla. You can find me at K-Shirties on social media, and I gave this 3.5 to 4 stars. I don't know yet.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paige from Minimal Bookie, and for enjoyment, I give this 4 stars. For execution, it was probably like a 3.5, really.
Totally. Yeah.
And we discussed beforehand that not only are we a smaller group this time around, so it's going to be less to say, but also like I just don't have a lot to say.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of live shows we got here, but it might be a quick and dirty one. I'd also like to address that in the chat before we started, we did start a little bit late, and somebody said that I might have negotiated 5 more minutes to finish, which the brand is strong. I did today, but I will have you know that I finished at 7:40 p.m. Thank you.
Wow.
Where shall we start? Let's start with Poppy, and I can't even remember his name now. What's his name?
Alex.
I almost called him Andrew. Oh my god, I was off. I just finished this yesterday.
How'd you feel about Poppy and Alex as individual characters and then as a couple?
That's a great question. I think I enjoyed them as characters. I felt like they were fully fleshed out in the sense like we knew like what each of their stereotypes are supposed to be. He's supposed to be like the nerdy like kid who's like the nerdy kid who has like a jock body apparently. And I was just thinking of Henry from Ugly Betty because I would literally am working through that, and he is Henry from Ugly Betty. But Poppy, like I feel like I started enjoying her more when we found out like why she travels all the time, when she said like the loneliness stuff and we like learned about her background. Like I love that they went to therapy, but they're not memorable characters. I won't remember them in a month probably.
At 7:40 and I forgot Alex's name already. So.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
I felt like they were both relatable in a way, like the family issues Alex has, like the responsibility he feels. And then also Poppy in the way that she feels like she invests more into relationships than the other person. That is me so much. Like I highlighted this one paragraph that she talks about that. I felt that like to my soul. So that spoke to me a little bit, but like Paige said, I probably won't remember them in T-2 seconds because it was like a formulaic read to me. I don't know. It was fun. Cheesy.
Yeah, feel very similar to the way that you guys are talking about it, where like when I finished it, similar to what Paige was saying when she's like, for enjoyment, it's this, and for execution, it's this. When I finished, I was like, yeah, I really liked that. And there were a lot of lines like Kayla was saying that I like that hit me. Like I did cry during this book, not from like the like it's so sad, but more like ooh, that resonates kind of feeling. So yeah, that whole thing where she's like, man, I it's not that I've like given up on love, but I invest so much and other people, do not, and all this stuff. I was like, ooh, man. But I think that they were more like the carriers for some of these things without them being something that I'm going to remember for them. Like I'll remember the general story and the theme of the story and the themes of like their lives a little bit, less so him, more so her, but not them as characters. They were just like the carriers that got us the stuff. So I liked them though. Like I wasn't annoyed by them really. I'm sure we'll talk about this, but like some of their dynamics towards the end, I was like, ugh. But otherwise, I was good.
Part of the reason that I'm just kind of like fine with them is that I really not struggled, but the beginning of this book was a little cringe to me. And I was really worried that it was the whole thing was going to be cheesy and cringe because of the way that the character introductions happen. And even the way that Poppy was talking about people, like my art school friend with capital letters and like things that were just like really, and like, you wouldn't it didn't even match the way that the rest of the story went, and like the way that she was talking about people, it didn't feel natural. It kind of felt like, I don't know, just like clunky scenes at the beginning to be like, these are the people in my life. And then it sort of settled down when we started going like back and forth into the past and present into something that felt a little bit more natural. So right out of the gate, I was just kind of like, this is cheesy, this is cringe, like I'm not here for it. And then it got better, but I never felt like I fully invested in the characters. They were great. I mean, they were fine in the context of the story, but yes, it wasn't something that I was like, oh my God, new favorite characters. And I think that they played so much to stereotype that they had their like super clean cut boxes that also felt like a little cheesy and a little disappointing, because the reason that I loved Beach Read was that it felt like such a fresh sort of like romance, and it felt like something out of the box, where this felt snugly in the box in every kind of aspect.
I think I'm the only person here who hasn't read Beach Read. Like this has been my first Emily romance. So like it was serviceable, and I liked like the characters, like you were saying, like they represented something more than they were characters. And I liked that element of the writing where it was like she was trying to tell us something alongside the romance, which I thought was cool. So I'm like excited to go back to Beach Read because I know like that was like her huge success and why everybody was so excited for this. But yeah, I have nothing to compare it to in terms of like her other romance books.
Which is probably good because Beach Read is so good. And I think this book is going to suffer for that, which sucks because it's like, it's not even her first, Beach Read wasn't like her first book. But it was her first big like adult contemporary romance hit that like everyone across the board has really enjoyed. I mean, I'm sure there's people that aren't, but whatever. It's been very well received. So I feel like this is going to suffer for that a little bit, but it still had some of the elements of Beach Read that I liked, where I found it very readable. Like I did go through it very fast. I did not find the beginning so cheesy, probably just because I was like, ha, 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 so fun. Like I said, more towards the end, there was like some stuff was like laid on a little bit too thick for me. But otherwise it was just like so easy to read when we had the back and forth, and when we all kind of know what the twist is of like probably why they stopped being friends, and you're just like waiting for the moment. So there's a lot of like that readability stuff that was really fun.
Yeah, I think the only thing about the beginning that sort of like had me sort of weary was because it was set like on an island specifically, and like as somebody from an island who like knows the dynamics of tourism and stuff, I was just like, this feels kind of weird, like the way they were describing the like local bar and stuff. I was like, if they keep going to these kinds of places, I'm not gonna like the vacation elements, but thankfully they did not. So that was the only part I was like, I'm not sure, but then I like got into it further.
I will also say that this, like on the enjoyment scale, this got like a few extra points because remember traveling, everybody?
Right?
Like she kept like talking about like even like the worst part of vacations and stuff, but you could tell part of the reason that I like Emily Henry's style is that she takes these romances and she infuses so much like other things in commentary. And here it was the commentary about like travel and vacation and like the moments that go wrong but are magic, or like the small things like dancing in the street badly, that just like those moments were like so much more romantic and special to me than like the big confession at the end. It was like the smaller things. So I read this and I just kept thinking like airplanes and airports and like hot hotel rooms and things like that. I don't know. I loved it.
I also love how like they put social media like influencers lifestyles in there. Like, oh, I'm friends with this person, but it's great because we can take pictures of each other and they understand. I'm like, that's us. Like, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, I feel like that was one of the least cringy. Like when influencers are in stuff, it's like over the top. But like this was one where it sort of like showed like, especially in the beginning, it felt sort of heavy-handed when she was talking about how like everything, I'm just selling them a life that doesn't actually exist. And I'm like, okay, we know, yes, you're correct. Like we didn't need it like spelled out like that. But I enjoyed like that was part of it too. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, that was part of like the beginning cringe for me. It was like, oh, okay, like slow down a little bit there with what you're trying to do. And she did. She settled down. It was like heavy-handed at the beginning, heavy-handed at the very end, and the middle was like just right. Mentioned a little bit too, like we talked about the characters, but like their dynamic, that there was something that you didn't necessarily always like about their dynamics.
Yeah, like, so mostly the end. Like, so for most of this, and I'm sure we'll make these comparisons, I kind of liked it because, one, I don't tend to like friends to lovers, but they're college friends to lovers, so they're friends as adults, which I'm okay with. I tend to like that. So that's cool. And it gave me younger When Harry Met Sally vibes, except for Alex is not a douchebag the way that Harry is. So there was that element, which I like. That's one of my favorite movies. So those things were cool because I like following characters like over a long period of time. You got to see them with like other people. There was no element, because you have to tread carefully with this, there's no element of like cheating. Like they were not cheating with each other. It was just this like, we sort of had feelings that we're trying to squash, and they were like really well behaved about it. So there was a lot of things that could have gone really wrong with this that didn't. But then towards the very end, the like, I can't even necessarily pinpoint, even though it's only been a few days, what exactly like some of the lines and stuff were. But when they get together, it's like a lot of gushiness when they get together like at the wedding or like right around the wedding, that I just was like, okay, like I get it. You guys have been like holding off on this for a long time, but can we just stop like a little, like stop? That was a little too much for me, because when you have this back and forth where there's like nothing with them and both of them are like, the other one doesn't like me, whatever. And then they're like, I love you. Like even the sex scenes were like very like all this love stuff. And I'm like, can you just like not right now? Like, can you wait?
It all along, but as the reader, we go from 0 to I love you like really quickly. So
yes.
We're ripping off the Band-Aid here.
Totally. Yeah, it was just a little much.
I thought for a second, like, I can't remember who says it first. Literally, all the details about this are like a sieve in my brain. But I halfway expected the other person to get really awkward about it, because like it's the first time they're hooking up, and I'm like, oh no, they're just fully going in for it, and they love each other fully, apparently. Okay, cool.
Right. And that made also the like the romance novel breakup thing all the more like, ugh, guys, come on. Like, you've done that, because essentially we start following them after the romance conflict usually would be something like that would break them up. But now we have this like added thing, and it's like, but why though? Like, and him being like, well, you were just using me. I'm like, dude, come on. And you both just had 2 years of a break. Like, come on. So that was just a little much. Yeah. I was like, guys, stop it.
That airport scene like escalated way too quickly. I was like,
yes,
where's this coming from?
Yes, I imagine being somebody at the airport watching that, to be honest. I was like, imagine you saw that.
Like with my phone, like
right.
That would be a TikTok. Somebody would be like filming that for TikTok. That's real.
Airport scene, like it just felt so heavy-handed too. Like, oh, they woke up late, so they didn't have a chance to talk to each other. I had to rush, and oops, they had a fight 5 minutes before the flight. Like, all of it was just like a little bit like really, forced. The whole thing with the friends to lovers to in this particular instance is that I'm not sure that I completely bought into like why they just weren't lovers from before.
Yes, correct.
Why don't we just, I don't know, like I didn't believe, I've read Friends to Lovers where it felt believable why they remained friends, and why that kind of gap in communication existed, or maybe one person didn't and the other did want and one didn't. But here it was just like, you guys are almost constantly almost kissing, just do it and shut up. Like, I don't, I didn't really buy into that, and that made the rush of the end and like the sort of breakup all the more sort of like, okay.
And the fact that it went on for 10 years and nothing,
Like,
then, like,
at that point, just give up and move on. Like, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
clearly neither of you want to make a move. Let's both move on from it. Yeah, that was like my one frustration was like I felt like, especially because we kept getting summers, I felt like it dragged a little bit in the middle because we just kept going. I'm like, okay, we know where this is heading though, so why is it taking so long together? Like, you want to give us this backstory of how good of friends they are, but all you're giving us is like sexual tension every other and like, so like I was like, why are they friends though? It felt like they were just people who were like in the same sphere because they were too scared to actually like get together in a romantic sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mari, you're having audio issues that they mentioned in the chat, but I don't know if there's anything to be done. I think it's usually when we're talking, we also can't hear you, like you just get drowned out. It's almost like it's coming from your laptop speakers and not
I think it's
actually
like
your
a
headphones.
pitch thing. Yeah, I think it's like a pitch thing. Like if you hit a certain like volume level, it cuts out.
That's not
now?
going to work out.
She's like, please hold.
Hello.
There we go.
But now we're going to have echo. We're going to have
Is
all
it a
of
lot
us.
of echo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a live stream if there's not some kind of technical issue at some point.
Truly.
Hello.
Oh, different. Okay. Okay.
How many
better?
headphones do you have?
I think it is better.
Girl, I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I have like 87 pairs of cheap headphones just like in every nook and cranny of this apartment.
Perfect. But what you guys were saying about the I don't really know. I had elements of that about like why didn't you guys just get together? But in my opinion, I think it made sense because they did keep kind of nailing in how different they are and how like he wants something so different from her. Like he wants stability and like he goes for the kindergarten teacher girl. And like and there's even a line that also made me just like, oh, like when he's basically like sort of yelling at her about like, I want the kids and I want the grandbabies and all this stuff and you don't. And I was just like, so it was that kind of like they want different things and they were very like they only really saw each other for summers, like they were dating other people. So the fact that we had like if they hadn't had any other relationships, I'd be like, what are y'all doing? But they were like dating other people. She had like 3 serious boyfriends. He was dating that Sarah girl. So it made sense to me. Was I still a little bit annoyed, especially at like the beginning when they didn't get together? I was like, sure. But there did seem to be, you know, they couldn't go on that one Iceland trip because she got sick. So it was kind of like outside and then right and then he came like and that's always a great rom-com scene of like the girl is sick, the guy comes and helps, you know. So like all that made sense because there did seem to be like external factors sort of stopping them. Was a little much after like 10 years, sure, but it made sense to me.
I think the thing that got me was that like they had one too many moments. Like there was the one big moment, but the scene where she's sick was also sort of in this flavor that I cannot stand this trope. It is like related to miscommunication, but when there's a kiss and then they go to say something and she's like, it didn't mean anything, it's trying to pretend like it never happened. I hate that trope so freaking much.
Yeah.
And it happened like that one big time, but the sick thing almost it was similar. Like they kept having those moments where they almost would get there and one of them would be like, no, let's move on. So after a few times I was just like, I'm over it.
Yeah.
I think that was my favorite flashback was the sick one. I was just swooning here for it like that. I was here for that entire moment. And then like Sam, you triggered me and made me remember the Tinder scene, which was ridiculous. Ridiculous. So that was my least favorite. But that was in the real time when they were like critiquing each other's Tinder profiles. And I'm like, y'all, clearly something is up here. Why else would you be doing this?
Yes.
Like, please.
Yes.
He's like, I would swipe on you.
That's what triggered me was that. Like, you only go for boring girls who look like this. I'm like, oh my God. Y'all are being so obvious right now.
There was a weird thing as far as one of the things I just remembered because that was around, well, actually, I don't know the order of when things happened, but he has all this trauma because his mom died giving birth, right? Or there's something about pregnancy because like when she almost gets pregnant and whatever. But I'm like, okay, so he wants a ton of babies, but then he's scared if she gets pregnant and then he had a vasectomy. Like, what is it though? Like this, because if that's one of the reasons that we're keeping each other like separate, but he does he want kids or does he not want kids? Because he has multiple lines where he's like, I want all these kids, and I think about our grandkids whenever we're together, which I was like, sir, wow. But then it's like, but don't get pregnant. It's like, oh, okay. That part was a little bit, when I think back, yikes.
Yeah. I don't know how to answer that. I was thinking a little bit because we were mentioning about the people that they were dating other people outside.
Mhm.
I also I didn't love, and I saw somebody in the chat saying that they enjoyed it. I enjoyed it too. Like I gave it 3.5, 4 stars. Like I enjoyed this. But now that I'm thinking about it, I am like noticing all the reasons that it wasn't like quite 5-star level to me like Beach Read was. And I also was like a little bit annoyed with the scene at the end with Sarah, the girl that he was dating, where she basically just comes out to give her benediction for them to go off. And I was just like, this poor woman, like I don't know anything about her. Like I'm not attached to her character, but that's also kind of like a tropey thing that I'm just like, okay, you have like an undeveloped female character just coming out to be like, bless you in your relationship. Bye. I was like, okay, I don't think we really needed that.
Literally the part where she goes to the school and they have their conversation with Sarah, and then she goes to the bar. I could hear the rom-com soundtrack just play, like the music. I was like, okay, here we go. But as far as like developing characters, like I felt like it was just Alex and Poppy the whole book. The book title is called People We Meet on Vacation, and like
we met one person, and it was the water taxi driver who made out with her.
Oh, and the couple that's really weird that were in the present day. Yeah.
True. Yes. Yeah. Those are the 3 people we've met on vacation.
And it's not only the title, but like at the end, her big realization is that she likes meeting people on vacation. Like that's, and I'm like, girl, who have you met? Like,
well, I think one of the
UK
things
title has a different. The UK has a different title. I'm going to search while you.
Oh yeah,
because I think it worked better.
The other thing too, again, like we're saying, I really liked it too. It's 4 stars. I enjoyed my reading experience. I was not picking it apart when I was reading it. I think sometimes what people forget when we're doing this book club thing is that like we're here to analyze this. So when we're all talking, we're like reminding each other. So it's not like we're sitting here being like, we want to hate this, because we don't. So let's just get that out of the way. But the other thing too about the very end, that I was like, ugh, and the book kind of remedied it, but I also was like a little yikes about it, was when she's basically like, I will give up everything for you. I was like, because yes, Alex is an okay dude and whatever, and he was like, no, I'm not gonna let you do that. But like a lot of dudes would let her do that, and it's just like kind of like, oh, like let's not say that we should try to do that, because that's not cute and romantic, actually. And just like the way that they were like sort of like all about like, I cannot live without, like, I've only been happy with you in my life. I'm like, this is a little bit codependent. Like I'm okay in this like, romance setting, whatever, but I'm also like, this is not the kind of dynamic I love. Again, when we're comparing to Beach Read, which I wasn't comparing it the whole time, but the dynamic of the couple in Beach Read was like wonderful. And there was just a few hiccups for me that I was like, ooh, not as enjoyable as I would have liked it to be.
They didn't even try long distance first. Like they just he immediately moved. I was like, okay, so this was a rush.
Right. It was like one kid, like, so are you moving or not? And I was like, sir,
right?
We have options.
Also, the UK name is You and Me on Vacation, which I think works better because that's literally the point of the book.
Yeah.
But I wonder why they did that. Now I'm like, I approve of the UK title much more.
Yeah, it makes more sense.
Underdeveloped side characters too, and the friend, the art school friend, every time she showed up I was like, literally why? And everything she said, and then like the mom being the like therapist and then showing up at the end again,
which wouldn't have been appropriate, by the way. Like she could not have seen her best friend's, like her child's best friend. Like that's not ethical. So that was that too. That I forgot until this moment.
They brought it up in the like book. They like call out that the child, the girl, it would not have been ethical for her to use her mom as like an actual therapist. And then later they're like, oh, my best friend wants to see you. And I was like, why did you remind us about ethics? And you just wanted to like hand wave over it and not make us question it. Why would you bring it up earlier? So the fact that the like therapist mom came up at the end again, and like every time the art school friend showed up, I was just like, there are not enough characters in this book, but I also don't want you. Like, move it along.
I was like really happy to see that they were going to therapy, but the fact that it was the mom, I'm like, okay, well, that takes away from the point of having like mental health issues in this book because it's not really realistic. So
Yeah.
So somebody mentioned in the chat that they thought the title was like referring to like the people we become on vacation, like they were becoming different people and meeting each other. And so Jess, my friend Jess, hated beach trees. So her and I are always like snipping.
Oh.
Sam.
Also, she reads the worst things.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm like, Jess.
Wait, is this fine if I
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
She reads the worst things. I love her. But she didn't like beach read. So we're always like snipping at each other about it. So she read this one first. And so she was sending me like reactions and they were like a little lukewarm in her. She was like, and we haven't even met anyone on vacation. So I went into this like prepared to defend the title. And that is also where my head went, like, oh, the people that they meet and like they're people they're becoming. But Jessica in chat is right. Like at the end, she has this whole bit, Poppy has this whole bit where she's like, I love meeting people on vacation. I was like, damn it, you proved Jessica's point.
She also does mention though, like I think there's a part where she says like the reason she liked traveling in the beginning was because like she stepped out of the role that maybe I'm mistaking it for something else that I've been consuming this week, but like stepped out of the role of who she is, like who she was in Linfield. And she could be anybody she wanted to be on vacation, and she could make any random choice she wanted to, and nobody would know if that was the wrong choice. Maybe it was the art school friend that said that. Maybe it was the mentor, but somebody said that in the book.
I'm remembering another. This is such a Lifetime movie. The more that we talk about it, so the moment where she's like on the subway and her high school bully,
oh my god, yes,
shows up,
yes,
and he's like, "Hey man, I'm sorry about the bullying. Let's hook up when you're in a." I was like, Jesus.
And who would do that? Like, right? Like, I mean, we're all like, because she's supposed to be what, like in her late 20s, early 30s, maybe. We're all in the age range. Like, if any of the people that were mean to me in high school, or that I was mean to, because there was cross, everything. No, we're gonna make eye contact and be like, hi, bye,
and ignore each other. Exactly. You pretend you do not see each other.
You do 100%.
Not.
No, and then they did the weird scene that was like. He's like, we should hang out, and she's like, are you hitting on me? He's like, no, I'm married. I'm like, what is all of this? This is really random.
And the insistence, it wasn't just like, hey, I saw you and I wanted to apologize. Like that would have been like cheesy on its own. But he like mentioned like 5 or 6 times, like when you're in town, we should hang out. Like when you're in town, we should hang out. And I was like, why is this happening?
Right, and it was never resolved.
No, it never shows up again. He just really wanted to hang out when she was back in town. I was like, I don't get why.
Like, first of all, like when he showed up, I was like, who is this? Like, I totally
right.
Oh, was talking. Oh, I don't know who that is.
Right.
I forgot.
That was me with the third, like the most serious boyfriend, Trey or whatever. It took me a minute to realize he was the photographer at R&R until she said, we spent all our free time together. And I'm like, oh, you work. And then I was like, oh, photographer man, right. Yeah.
And okay, at the end, she like rushes to do her big confession in the bar, and then he like rejects her only to run after her like 1 second later. So we have the like second scene again. And I was like, why? Like everything was just like this much too much. You know, like just if she had like dialed it down just a little bit, like it would have been better.
Yeah, but while reading it, to be very clear, I like ate it up. I was like pretty much fine. Like there was a few times, again, the cheesiness with the sex scenes being like, I love you, and like all this love, and I'm just not my jam. And some of that stuff looking back, I'm like, yeah, this was all a little much. But their angstiness during, I was okay with personally, because you guys know how I love the like chest hurting, like, oh my God, thing. And they definitely had that. So it was an enjoyable experience during that part. But yeah, when you go back and analyze it, I don't think this book holds up very well to like being analyzed very well.
Yeah.
As far as the sex scenes go, I have to say, like that one line where he's like, I know what you like, and I'm like, but how?
Wow. Unless they had like some real, he doesn't seem like the kind of person who would have been comfortable if they had like, she wanted to talk about like sex.
Yeah,
like
right.
I feel like he would have been like blushing, like not in the mood to talk about it. So I don't know, like I couldn't believe like they would have had that conversation.
Right.
At some point.
I guess it's just the
10
implication
years.
that they know each other so well that of course they would be like, knowing each other in bed. But it's still like debatable. Like I don't think that's how it works.
Uh, and then he's just like getting like sun poisoning all over the zoo or something. And
She's like the
I just-
giraffe.
Uh-huh.
Oh my god.
I thought that was somewhere. I was like, what's happening to him? Like, because he kept being sick. But then they're just like, okay, let's go home. And then like it's I don't know. It's just like, oh, I thought he was like seriously ill or something, but it just like that gets dropped.
Just
I
adding
don't know.
more to the horrible vacation, right? Like it was the whole thing of like this vacation has to be the worst. Which I mean, the air conditioning being broken was very triggering for me. Like I was very much
Listen,
like,
I don't have AC still, and it was 30 degrees last. I was so triggered by that part of the book. I was like, this is me right now.
yeah, that was a lot. I was like, that's sticky. I can feel it. Like, ugh. So yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, I do have to say that I relate to Alex and his like many showers. And every time she's like, "You're gonna shower again? You're just gonna sweat, ma'am."
When she said she was a 3 shower a week person, I was like, you're being very honest in this book, right?
Yes, the 3. Yeah, that was a lot. I was like, "Ooh, man."
Yeah.
For traveling too, like yikes.
Ooh, yeah.
City? I don't know. What else? Anything else? I honestly have no more feelings about this book. I would reread this if I needed, like, if I were in the mood, like, specifically for a super tropey rom-com. And also, if this got adapted, I'd watch it.
Totally.
100% would watch an adaptation of it.
Yeah, definitely.
So in the chat again, was anyone else annoyed by the amount of times the puppy eyes move was used?
Yeah,
because I couldn't picture it really. I'm like, what does this grown man look like doing that? What is that? Like?
No. That's from back to MySpace days. What?
I could not tell what he was looking like.
Of times that they repeated like most of their in jokes.
Yeah.
Like it again, like happened one too many times. Like if she had just gone a little bit less, it would have been fine. But in general, there was just like a lot of repetition of their jokes.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is still a book that I would reread, and I plan on getting, like, as she writes more contemporary romances, like I will be reading all of her stuff just because I've liked the stuff that she's come out with. It doesn't need to be perfect all the time. That's not really what we're looking for. It's just, that's what book club's about.
Yeah. It did what it was like set out to do as a rom-com. Like you like enjoyed the write of it, and it like bumped up beach reads for me. I'm gonna read it while I'm off on vacation next week. So like her writing is good. It's just like this. I had a couple things I was just not a fan of in this, but like not enough to not read her ever again.
Yeah.
Totally.
This is definitely like a vacation book, a by the pool book. Like I read it all today. I mean, I read all of our book club books in one day, but this one was like especially made for like binging in, a short amount of time. It was easy to read. And I would not be surprised if it like just becomes sort of really popular this summer, like the book of the summer. So Paige, beach read is not about the beach.
I know it's about like the author stuff, which is why I'm like excited to go back to it, because I always love reading about like writers, and it sounds very like the opposite of friends to lovers, which is like not enemies to lovers, but like dislike. Rivals. That's the word I'm looking for. Yes, correct.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I think that's it. Our fearless leader.
So I think we talked a little bit about like we'd share at the end like about other vacation reads if we had any, or like rom-coms that were vacation inspired that you enjoyed or that made you think of. We talked about a lot of tropes, and maybe there are some other things that did these tropes better or worse. So what you got?
One of my favorite movies ever is A Lot Like Love with Ashton Kutcher and Amanda Peet. And like they meet like in '93, I remember, because it was like a lot of '90s stuff. But literally they're friends and like on and off again through their relationships and stuff over like 10 years. And it's just it's done so well. And like you're just rooting for them the whole time. And like I was constantly comparing like stuff that happened in this book to that movie. So I recommend watching A Lot Like Love.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, neither have I, but now I'm sold. I love rom-coms, so I will be watching that.
Make a little note.
Make a little list for myself in the corner.
Yeah, definitely watch it.
I can't even think of a lot of like rom-com movies with vacations. You guys might mention them. I'll be like, oh, you're right. Yeah, that one. But I know we mentioned in Voxer, The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren, which is Christina Lauren's best book.
Yeah,
so,
that was such a good book. I read it on the one plane ride. It was
it's very good. So
Yeah.
that was like probably my favorite of the like traveling rom-coms, even though it's very different because it's like enemies to lovers and all that, and like fake dating and all these things that aren't like this at all. Some of the tropes that this sort of reminded me of a little bit, which is it's not a similar book in a lot of ways, but for some reason I still was thinking of it, is was it One Day in December by Josie Silver? That one goes farther with some of the questionable behavior, and the male character in particular is probably not the best person in the world. So it's very different from Alex, but they have this like connection, and then they are kept apart by a lot of different circumstances throughout. And the tension felt similar to me, even though it's ramped up way more in One Day in December. And there's questionable emotional cheating, physical cheating stuff that happens in that one. But it felt similar to me in the same way.
That reminded me of like one of my, like, I haven't watched it in so long, but I remember like it was one of my faves when I was a teenager, which is Love Rosie, with the girl who plays Clary, Lily Collins.
Yes, I have never watched that, but I've seen the poster for it before.
It's like hardcore friends to lovers. Like they were friends since they were in high school, which is like secondary school in the UK. And then she ends up having a kid with somebody else. And he ends up marrying somebody else.
I think I have seen this.
Sam
Wait a second. Yes, I have watched this, and I blocked it out of my brain. I was so mad at him. Yeah. Oh my god, that was. Did they get together at the end?
Spoilers. I believe so.
I think. Okay, for a second, I
feel like they have to.
But yes. Oh my god.
Yeah.
That was
also,
the worst.
They're both beautiful to look at. So great if you just want to look at two beautiful people on screen for an hour and a half.
Oh, totally. But yeah, that has a lot of pain in that movie. I forgot. My brain was like, don't remember this. Wow.
Talk about I DNF'd One Day in December. As soon as I realized, like in chapter 2 or 3, what the heck was happening, I was like,
yeah. You would, yeah.
Like I couldn't.
Yeah.
But it reminded me, it's not a vacation read, but Talia Hibbert just re-released this book. It's called One a Bet when it was indie publishing. Okay. I think it's called The Roommates something now. I can't remember the re-release title. And it is Talia Hibbert's self-published work is a lot like raunchier than her traditionally published stuff.
Yeah.
What?
I was thinking of the purple dildo.
Excuse me. Yes, I'm still traumatized by the purple dildo.
I mean,
in mainstream.
It's not like it's like raunchier in terms of like the content of the sex scenes. There's just a lot more sex scenes.
Okay.
But I really loved Wanna Bet because it is friends to lovers, and they've also been friends since college. And so you're doing the same thing where you're flashing back and forth to like their relationship through college, and they're in forced proximity because she has to move into his apartment because of an emergency. Oh. So that like whole dynamic is going on. But that book did such a good job, like working through what it would mean for like him to have been in love with her for all of these years. And like they actually she confronts him of like, you have work you need to do on yourself because you've just been so stuck on this unrequited love that you haven't like lived your life. It was just so well done and so well thought through, and I actually believed the reason that they had not gotten together for that time. Like I was like, yeah, like I get it. So I loved that book. I'm curious. I don't know if it was just re-released or if anything was changed, but I think you'll start seeing a lot of that book talked about on the bookish spaces.
I'll be buying that for my vacation. Thank you.
I just added it to my list. So I mean, similar vibes when you're talking about that, which I guess now we're sort of getting like a 7 degrees kind of thing. But a like friends to lovers kept apart sort of, but I don't think it's for a very long time, is another Christina Lauren, Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating, which I did not like the end of. So look up potential romance tropes if you're at all sensitive to any of them, because the end of that was like not good for me. But it was still this like, they're really good friends. They're both like polar opposites. They're not dating and they're setting each other up on dates, but it's very obvious that they just kind of should get together. Similar vibes.
Like it's like taking the Tinder scene out of this book and like making it a whole.
Pretty much.
Oh my
Pretty
God.
much. Yeah. They go on a bunch of like double dates when it's very obvious. Like, and I feel very awkward for like the other characters that are like these people are obviously in love. So
Great. 40 minutes we stretched that out to. I am so
Impressed.
proud of us. And now I get to announce what we're doing for next month. I think Paige has a copy already, and we're going to be
I do.
reading Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I'm really excited about this. I loved The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Every time I think about Daisy Jones and the Six, it falls a little further in my feelings. So I'm curious how this is going to happen.
It's fine. I feel like Daisy Jones was like prime for me because I really love Almost Famous, and it has those vibes so intensely that I cannot love it. But I'm very curious to see, because I did love those two books. Will this one hold up for me?
for sure.
This is like Emily Henry situation where it's like all of the hype is now like, okay,
Yeah.
do not let us down. Let's
sure.
go.
For sure.
And
Are
it's
you
set,
guys-
it's based on a character. It's based on a side character, like his kids. So like she's keeping the universe intact.
Attached,
It's a singer that's mentioned in Daisy Jones. You might recognize the name, you might not. I don't know.
I think someone said that he's also mentioned very briefly in Evelyn.
He is. Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So yeah, that's
Taylor
why.
Jenkins Reid is making her own contemporary universe. That's
Good
Yeah.
for her.
Love
Good
that
for
for her.
Are you guys doing the audiobook or the physical copy?
I'll probably do physical.
Yeah, I'm not sure because I read Evelyn Hugo on physical and Daisy Jones on audio, and now I'm like, I don't know which experience
I'm
will be better
curious.
for me.
If it's like a full cast again, because it's
Yeah.
for like siblings. I don't know if each sibling gets like a perspective, because that would be good for audio.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's just one perspective, I would probably just
Yeah, I'll have to look at that.
Read
That's a,
it.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we'll see you guys again next month. We're back on track.
Yay.
Woo! We will post on our Twitter the date and time for our next live show. Thank you for joining us for this one. As we started with telling you we liked it, and then we picked it apart for 40 minutes.
Typical.
as usual. Let's be honest.
On brand. And we'll see you guys next month. Bye. Did
Do we love Sam?
Sam,
Sam and
leaving.
Sam has to end the live show.
Oh my
If we all
god.
leave, will it just end?
Oh, sorry. Okay. Now we'll say bye. Bye, everybody.